Right, the lid is off, as you can clearly see. That's the magnet I glued on the drain plug, which had a lot of swarf on it. So that is right near the outlet where the oil pipe comes out. A little barbed fitting there. And then it goes round the oil cooler and the oil filter, so whatever this didn't catch, the oil filter would have on it as the oil passed through it. I'm just trying my fingers, cleaning them. The bearings are good. Bearings are silky smooth. These are, I was trying to see, they're either SKFs or FAGs, FAGs. As a matter of course, anything Soviet, dump the bearings, dump the seals. These seals are aftermarket seals. They're not the Russian ones anymore, the Soviet ones. Let's see if I can do this again. Right, I just recorded a load and didn't press record. Idiot. That dowel, that peg, locates on this gear. And he just sort of floats around and sits on that plate. The idea is the gear, he won't move. He's moving now because he's not being held, but he won't move until you put it in reverse. Now it won't go in reverse because everything's been disturbed, but yeah, when that drops down, this gear engages that, and that's your reverse. It's going to float about, and then when you take it out of reverse, I've done it too far. Look again. Hold on. Oh, come on. Now I've taken it too far the other way. Right, so he's out of reverse, and he will just sit on that dowel and not do anything. He's got a bronze bush, and then it's not. And he obviously, once that plate is on, it's upright, and that dowel is horizontal. So he just sits there, minding his own business, not moving until you put it in reverse. You push this lever forwards, this gear drops, engages with this, and reverses the whole gearbox. So the bearings are good. The fourth gear, this shaft is this shaft. This is a shaft that my spare gearbox, and fourth gear is obviously right at the very bottom. These splines, this is your input shaft. This goes into your clutch. And this is your output shaft. This goes onto your prop shaft. So you've got power from the engine input through the gearbox, output to the prop shaft. Inside there is your clutch push rod, and on that, in the case, will sit this little fella with a bearing, and then on top of that will sit this little fella with that arm that I showed you earlier. The clutch, actually, when you pull the clutch lever in, it pulls the clutch cable, which is attached to the top of that arm. And as it pulls that way, it pushes this down, pushes the clutch push rod forwards when this is in the right position into the clutch, and disengages the engine. So that's that. That's one I've made by Ralphie Customs, because the original, this is the top end of the original one. It drops right down to 5mm. So of course, if it's going to snap anywhere, it's going to snap there. There's no sort of angled relief. I'm in my own light. It's just been machined. This shaft and this shoulder coming out, I can't point with my thumb, but they're at 90 degrees. There's no sort of radius on it, no sort of relief. So the any stress, we'll just snap that, which you did there, snap the end. This bit's clean off. This bit normally fits inside there, but the bottom on a Soviet clutch, the Soviet clutch discs have got a square female hole, and this clutch push rod fits, because it's got a square male, fits in that, but the BMW hasn't, so it needs just a point, just a dull point on it to push into the clutch plate. So that's the one that broke, and that's the one I sent a diagram to Ralphie. He's on one of his videos, not last November's or December's, the one before, his last video of the year. He machines me one of these, and I didn't want this system in it. I just had, will it come out? It will. Hold on. I just poked it from underneath. I'm trying to look through the lens and see what I'm doing at the same time. Right, what I asked Ralphie to do was obviously the same bottom end in the clutch, but solid all the way up, just with 2 O-rings machined into it, and this bit that will fit inside there. So the weak point has been moved right to the end, which is held in there, which is held in the case, which has got a bearing on it. So touch wood, and this is much harder metal. This is he did say what it was, 504 or 508. It's a much harder metal. It's not tool steel, because without ceramic cutting tools you can't machine tool steel. So this is a nice hard. And these O-rings, because originally they don't have, I think there's some sort of silly, there's a silly baggy cup that goes on there, and that's all that stops the oil going down. And you can see there's plenty of room for the oil to go down, but with these O-rings in, I've got some O-rings, I measured the inside diameter of this, and I knew what size rod I was getting, so I got some corresponding O-rings and asked Ralphie to cut just 2 grooves so the O-rings fit in there. And the back of the engine, or the clutch, is dry as a bone, so it obviously works. Thank you, Ralphie, big love, mate. So now I'm going to take the guts out, take the selector forks out. That's where the oil comes in, the top of the gearbox, and it splashes on these, the idler for the kickstart. See, it's got like a ratchet mechanism on it, so when you kick it over, it turns the engine, but when you release it, that's what you get, the old brrr, when you lift the kickstart up. Brrr. So this will spin, and then the oil flood onto that, and it will get spun around the engine instead of just dropping to the bottom and straight out. So let's get the guts out and see what the 4th gear looks like. Okay, 2 days later, I've got my new seals. Here's one. That's for the back of where the output shaft comes out, where the little rubber donut sits on that, and the other fork goes on there. This goes, that little spiral part there, the spirally bit locates with, oh god, didn't plan this out, did I? What did it fit with? Ah, lost it. Where's the speedo drive? Where have you gone? There it is. Oh. With that speedo drive, that's the seal, and that's the speedo drive. Speedo cable goes in there, and that spirally bit there runs against this, gives you a speed. So I've got the new seal on the gasket. Right, cloth. The old gear, I did it a minute ago. Oh dear God! Right, here we go. New gear. Oh, this is the original gear from this cluster. This is the longer fourth. There's a gap there because under that washer it's got a bronze bush there, and that just slides on. There's no, it just slides over there. So the new gear, the old, oh God, sort yourself out. I don't know if you can see that. I can't see because of the glare. This gear is smaller because it's a longer fourth, so there's less teeth in it. That's the original fourth that goes on this shaft. These two dogs there meet with those two dogs cutouts there. That's the longer fourth, and again you can see, I'll just move the camera so I can look over it. If I line up the Woodruff key slot, you can see that it is smaller gear, there's less teeth, so it's a longer fourth. It drops the speed down by about 500 RPM in top gear. However, if it'll focus, what you don't want is for the case hardening to get chewed off like that. You can see all the teeth are horrible. So that was obviously a bad batch, or just rushed out, not hardened. That's the bearing. Doesn't seem too bad, but at £4 a go, just stick another one in. SKF, pretty standard, 6304. And the other one is a 6205. I've taken this gear off before, obviously when I put the new longer fourth on it, and I used a puller. I think I used that with a lot of heat and an air gun. That's quite a substantial puller, but there's no way it was getting this bugger off. This little collar, see, it's got splines in it, sits in there. I had to take it to my local garage, and they had a 10-ton press and just pushed it out, but it was very, very tight. That gear will sit on there, then you'll have the bearing, and then you'll have that little collar there, and then that bit pokes out through the case, and that bit will slot onto it. The fork will just slot on this splined inside, same as that is splined outside. This bearing, well, I'll just have to put a little bit of heat on it. I don't have to go mental. Just a couple of 100 degrees or so from a hot air gun will expand that a couple of thou, and that'll just push on there nicely. That's that one done. And then I'm going to have to heat up that, push that on. Then I'll have to heat the new bearing, which is over there. Just heat the inner race up gently so I don't muller it, don't discolour it, don't turn it blue, don't go mad. And then I can push that one on. And then it's obviously got hot. I can't see it properly because of through the camera, but it's just a little spline collar that'll have to have the shit heated out of it and get pressed on. I say pressed on, there's my press. but obviously nice and gently, just nice and evenly. Don't have to go mental. And then you put the two gear clusters together with not that yet, but the selector forks, and you push them all in, and the bearings sit in there. That's all nice and clean. I'll have to lift this up. It won't come off because of that AN fitting, but when I took it out, I just lifted that up with my left hand, pulled these two out of my right hand together. They just wiggle out, wiggle, 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 out they come. That goes on top. They all meet up nicely. Job's a good one. So I shall get heating up, getting some bearings on, and then we'll come back and I shall try and put my camera up somewhere. I might shut my toolbox lid and put the camera up sort of here somewhere, and angle it so you can watch me get bored watching me put the cluster in. Back in a minute. Okie dokie. Right. Bearing, new old false gear, that little collar, and inside that collar there's a groove at the bottom, and there's a rubber O-ring. You can't see it, but it stops the oil coming up, or it's supposed to stop the oil coming up these splines. If it's in there, I think this one, I've put the selector forks in, but this is the reverse, with that little cutout, with this arm, this little lever moves this up and down. So I think I'll put that in last. This rod, really oily, goes through all three to a little indent in there. These rods are the same diameter but different lengths, and if you swap them over, when you bolt the case down, you'll punch this rod, if it's too long, straight out the bottom of the case. Don't ask me how I know. So let's see if I can do this. That's that idler gear for the kickstart. That has this fella with like a one-way business on it. That ratcheting noise when you kick it over. So let's see what we can do. I think I should have. Right. This is. You need 3 hands for this, clearly. Might be able to do it this way. Ooh. Right, you're sitting up there, you're sitting there. Hey! And these selector forks, this one hasn't bloody got it. I'll have to show you in a minute. They've got like a little peg that fits into the quadrant. You probably can't see it up there. Right, you're just going to have to bear with me a minute. show you what's going on. We're going to go in there. Right. Need a little pointy thing. The back of this selective fork, so the rod goes down through these holes. I'm really not doing this very well, I do apologise. There's a hole, and so I can't even see through the lens myself because there's a bloody wasset in the way. There's a peg down there. You can see a let's get a light. Oh, hold on, let's take this out of this bloody holder. Right. Where the shaft goes through, see the peg at the bottom? That's got to go into that plate. This plate is called a quadrant, so when you change gear, this quadrant turns round, clicks round, and there's a sprung loaded bit on top that just stops it moving at will. Sprung loaded, and it fit into little notches on the outside, and there's a bit that sticks out of this quadrant that when it touches that pin there, that is your neutral light, so it earths through the quadrant and through that little pin through there. So now I've got to get that long rod through there, and through there into the indent in the bottom of the case, and make sure that see the peg there, it's shiny. That peg has got to go in the slot, in the groove in this quadrant. So I shall be back in a minute. Okay, we're in. So this shaft has gone all the way through, and on this quadrant it's quite thick, but it narrows down right at the very top. If you focus, so when it's in neutral, and only when it's in neutral, can you push this lever forwards, because this part of the selector fork that moves this gear up and down has got a saddle, for want of a better word, that will fit over this quadrant, but only on the skinny bit, and the skinny bit is only lined up when it's in neutral, so that you can drop it down. See, it's too wide anywhere else, just there. And also when it's in neutral, that little silver plunger you can see poking out from the right will touch the quadrant and go to earth and bring your neutral light on. So what do we do now? I don't know. Make sure it turns for a start. See, I should be able to, it probably won't because of the... See, if I could hold that shaft still and turn this one underneath, nothing would move. You can't see it because my hand's covering it, but holding that one still, what's that? And then if I was to use the gear lever, which turns this, moves this up and down, that would move it's quite complicated, but it's also very simple. Moves this up and down on this shaft, and it's bent at the end, and there's pins sticking out of the quadrant that this drags up or pushes down and turns the quadrant, and it's got little sort of cutouts all the way around it, which those pins sit in. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. You can just about see one going into the quadrant down at the bottom. You can see the slot in the quadrant. So now I can put, where is he? There he is. This fella with the one-way teeth on there. So although this doesn't move, it when you kickstart it, see it moves the whole gearbox, but only in one direction. That's what the oil runs onto that and gets splung, idiot. It's flung about. Now we can sorry, put this on. This has got a little tab on it on the top there. Slots on there, that slot's on there, so that's just, that keeps the tension on it when it's releasing the ratchet. And then the idling reverse, which we won't have in place, or we could, because it might hold it in place properly. We can put the lid on, clean all the surfaces up, give it a bit of a clean. They're clean anyway. Put some bit of grease. I've got some grey sealer that Matt from Windmill Motorcycles recommended. You're going to throw the hammer on the floor. Oh God! It is this stuff. 3-bond. Use it on petrol, oil, and water. Which he tends to use that instead of gaskets a lot of the time, especially on final drives, because you have to bolt the final drive up to check the shim in, and you can't do it with gaskets all the time, it'll just keep breaking. So he just puts a very thin smear of that stuff around it, which I put round here just to stop any oil coming up through the splines. But now I shall get the lid in place and put on, and I'll come back. And the lid is on. It's in neutral. That is going to turn, even though I'm turning this. So what I've done, put the gear lever on, gear change lever in the wrong position, doesn't matter. Let's put this up here. Right, now if I hold that, turn that, that doesn't move. I can hold this and turn that, and that one doesn't move. Put it in reverse. You can hear it spinning in there. That's turning. Out of reverse. I'm holding that still. First. You can hear that. Second. third, fourth. The gears work. Right. With these gearboxes, they're very similar. 3, 2, half, neutral. Right. This little fella here, when pushing down, he's on that quadrant as well. He's on the gear change linkage business. When I put it in gear, I don't know if you can see that because the kickstart lever might be in the way. Can't see even with my bloody glasses on. This plunger on the bike, the lever, the clutch actuating arm that pivots on this, the back of it sits on that plunger. So these two bits that sit in there, that groove, what the arm sits in and pushes the clutch rod, which is in there, upside down. This fella sits on there. Clutch push rod is in there, and when the clutch push rod goes down, in this case, or forwards, when it's in the right position, engages the clutch. When you push the gear lever down, see that come up? It won't work with a BMW engine, but with a standard Dnepr engine, you can put it in gear. It's in gear, but that is right up, so that means it's pushing the clutch in. So you can take your hands off the handlebars, and you won't go. You can't pull away with this. It's far too fierce. It will just go flying up in the air. But when you get used to it and you time it properly, you can see my finger. When you put it into second, it holds the clutch on, lets the clutch off. Third, clutch on, clutch off. So you can actually ride it. Once you've pulled away in first gear, you can take your hands off the handlebars, into second, into third, let the clutch, and you're using this. You're using the clutch, the foot as a foot operated clutch, and you can go down the gears, but you can't go. You can't pull away in first, but you can go up and down through the gears using this arm to push the clutch push rod and disengage the clutch. So it's a clever design, very like the Honda C90 with its semi-automatic clutch. So that works. Take that off. That's the swirly bit that turns your speedo cable. I've got to give that a clean up. Take that old oil seal out, put the new oil seal in, nail it into the engine. I put grease on the gasket both sides. The good thing with grease is you can put loads of it on, and if it goes in the gearbox, the oil dilutes it. Whereas with any sort of sealant, not only does it look horrible, with this you just wipe it off. Wipey, 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 wipey. Job's a good one. And I don't mind grease and oil on the engines or on the frame and stuff. It stops them rusting, but you get sealant in your engine or in your gearbox or in whatever you've rebuilt, and it goes hard and it blocks oil ways up, and it's bad juju. Bit of grease on there, you can take it on and off, it won't stick, and the oil, gearbox oil, engine oil, whatever oil, will dilute it. So that's all swimmingly lovely. It's in out of reverse. It won't, if it's in gear, like I said, with that quadrant, when that quadrant turns, it's in gear, it will not go into reverse. Is that neutral? Neutral. It won't go into reverse. Ah, that's it. It's in reverse. It's got to be really, really neutral, because where the cutout bit is such a fine tolerance either way for that saddle to go over it. Neutral, reverse, in gear, no reverse, won't do it. Like a sort of fail-safe system, so you can't sort of put it in reverse and then go through the gears and go quicker. When you're in reverse and you go too fast, the front goes light and it's completely unmanageable. We get a massive tank slapper. So, clutch push rod in, bearings in, clean them up, new oil seal, I'll put it in, and the job's a good one. Thank you very much for watching. Any questions? Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Don't if you don't. Yeah, thanks again. Goodbye.